Hello, Jeters. It's Friday night and 11:36 p.m. Here we are again. And tonight it's going to be pretty fun, pretty easygoing, I think, anyway. And so we're mostly just going to have a little bit of a laugh. Oh, there's going to be some serious parts, but probably no coding. And we're not going to go too much into the news. It's been a long week. Super great week at Merle. Tons of stuff going on, but lots of really good progress. We'll maybe leave it at that. So today, I stumbled across some fun Instagrams and YouTubes. And so we're going to watch a couple of these, 3 in total. And I might have some commentary. But let's get started. We're going to start with this guy here because it's maybe the most serious. And it's going to segue, I think, into our vibe coding one. Here we go. Oh, we've got him muted. Start this again.
Dangerous. Anti-intellectualism. Somehow, I did my own research carries more weight than actual studies, peer review, scientific research. Actual expertise. We're letting charisma be credentials and vibes over actual verified knowledge. And it's killing us. Imagine getting brain surgery from a dumbass with a ring light and a podcast. But when it comes to public health, climate, and even history, that is exactly what we're doing right now. And we're drowning in misinformation. And a reminder that the loudest voice in the room is rarely the one that is most informed.
True.
And usually it's the one that's playing on fear, anger, and ego. But this is also important to understand that expertise isn't elitism. Just because you're an expert doesn't make you better than other people.
True.
But in reality, it's a responsibility.
And in a world full of noise, it's time that we turn the volume back up on the facts. We need to talk about something that's normal that is extremely dangerous. Anti-intellectualism. Somehow, I did my own research carries more weight than...
This does actually, as I think most of you know, which is why I keep the Dark Ages up in perpetuity. It does make me a little nervous. And I think sometimes we can go a little bit off the deep end. And I think we should be checking ourselves to make sure that we're not just having an opinion and then doing a Google search that is essentially an echo chamber to tell us about how we're right. Especially given how much noise there is on the internet, I think it can be very dangerous. At the same time, I think also those of us who are supposed experts, we need to be really careful to make sure that we don't create levels of elitism or pretension just because we have a PhD or we are a professor or whatever. We're a medical doctor. Those are all, that's great. And I'm all for certain degrees of credentials, which are very helpful. But let's make sure that we don't overinflate those, because science is, in my mind, something we're working on perpetually. And we don't have all the answers. And it's important that when we're presenting facts, that we are clear about the things that we think we know and also clear about the things that we don't fully understand. For example, this is sort of a random tidbit. You can maybe Google this at some point if you're curious. But one of the very strange kind of issues that happens with CPU transistors is you can get these things called transient faults. This is just random Goju stuff. And one of the causes for transient faults of all things are like cosmic rays. I only wish I was making this up because it sounds like it's something out of like a sci-fi thing. But no, this is a real thing. You can Google it and see for yourself. But the point about these transient faults is I don't know that we have the mechanisms in place to block the cosmic rays in a way that is like feasible. And so sometimes we will have these various hardware failures and we'll build in redundancies and we'll try to protect things. But this is part of the reason why, in some cases, that your hardware is naturally degrading over time, is that these random cosmic rays are coming down and shooting these particles that are creating transient faults on your machines. So how is this related to this notion of being clear about where we are with science? I think some experts would try to argue that our computing systems, when we're building like deterministic software, it's like 100% deterministic. It's 100% reliable. We know exactly what the outcomes will be. But as I think some of you have heard or seen in prior videos, I think most of software engineering is actually a nines problem, that we have some degree of confidence and it's just a question of how confident we are, but it mostly never gets to 100%. And so what I mean by that is we can be 99 point and then some number of nines confident, 3 nines, which is 99.9, 5 nines, there's like 3 nines after the decimal, this kind of thing. And we never quite get to 100%. And the reason for that are things like transient faults. So it's important that we qualify our claims that, yes, the software that we're writing, it should behave deterministically in a perfect world. But then transient faults happen, cosmic rays happen, and then suddenly systems that should behave perfectly don't. And that's why we need to, I think, kind of bring it down a notch. That it's like this strange balance, and I have to, I have to try to sort this out myself when I'm in sort of professor mode. Oftentimes, my students will want me to have definitive answers on things, and I don't always. I'll tell them like when we start getting into the bleeding edge of science, I'll say, okay, now we're going to discuss things like the different subfields of code reasoning. And then I'll explain that this area of code reasoning is evolving. And so we don't have the nomenclature yet to fully capture what these things mean. And so these terms are evolving. And so some of the things we understand very clearly, like code analysis. We've been doing code analysis, program analysis, this type of thing for decades. And so we do have terms for that. And we talk about things like static analysis or dynamic analysis or, these hybrid analyses where it'll be a fusion of both online and offline. So dynamic and static analysis, right? So that term may be fairly well defined, but then other terms like code understanding, code comprehension, or code intention, well, we don't quite actually know what those words mean because they're sort of in flight. And if you look at the literature, you'll see that people are using these terms in different ways. And this is part of the reason why we wrote the 3 pillars paper, is we were like, people are doing this machine programming thing, and they're calling it various names, and it's creating some confusion because some people are calling it ML for code, some people are calling it like learned program analysis, and so we should try to just help clarify by creating a taxonomy that people can rely on with formal definitions or formal-ish definitions, and then we can move forward as a community. So anyway, going back to, I think, the point that he was making about experts not being elitists, I think that's actually really important, and that's on all of us out there that are experts. So if you are an expert and you're watching this, I think we have a dual responsibility. We have one side, we have a responsibility to make sure that we're helping educate and move the field forward and, up level a lot of the up and comers, train the future thought leaders and train our students and our mentees, this type of thing. But we also have a responsibility to not use our position of power in a way that spreads hype or misinformation. And this can be really hard. This can be super hard when you start to become an expert and people are looking to you for information and you're kind of seen as the expert in the room, and you're the only one that's sort of like fact checking yourself. You're the only one that is saying, hold on a second, I might be getting this wrong. And that is, I think, one of the cornerstones of responsibility for, I think, like the top minds in science. And it's something that I see a lot of my peers do very well. Like Sumit Gulwani is someone that comes to mind. He's just this brilliant computer scientist, and he's very responsible, and he's super humble, even though he probably knows collectively 10x what I know. But he is continue to be like deferential to me, which is, it's just an incredible guy. But he's a really good example, I think, of someone that he'll lean in on the things that I think he knows well, but then he'll also check himself. Even though he could be in a room where everyone is looking to Sumit, saying, well, you're the expert, Sumit, you tell us. And then he'll check himself and say, well, look, I may have opinions on this, but I don't actually know that this is like an evolving thing. And so we need to figure this out together. So I'm not going to give guidance here. I need time to figure this out. And we need, as a community, to sort of work on these things. So I think that's maybe one example of how to be a very sort of responsible scientific leader. And if you aren't familiar with Sumit Gulwani, I strongly recommend you can add him to your list of people to check out. Let me just actually quickly, I have to Sumit Gul. Yeah. This is our Sumit Gulwani guy. I've known Sumit for maybe a decade or so, something like that. He and I started connecting when we started doing machine programming stuff together. He's been doing machine programming long before I have. He actually designed and implemented Flashfill, which is one of the first large-scale machine programming systems in the world that's built directly into Excel. This is long before language models existed. And so, yeah, he's just a super incredible guy, brilliant mind, but also extremely humble. And so I was saying, I have a lot of colleagues and friends at Microsoft, and some of them are just really incredible people. Sumit's on that list for me. So Yeah. So I agree basically with everything that he's saying. And I do think we need to be really careful, especially in this sort of abundance of information that we're living in today with the internet and social media. And we can quickly sort of create echo chambers that reinforce any views that we have, no matter how well informed or misguided they are. And yeah, let's continue to work toward using science and reason to guide us forward. So I love what this guy's saying. And by the way, just to be clear, I don't associate in any way a political leaning or view on this. The way I think about this is science is apolitical. Science is just science. Like computers don't care what your political affiliation is. Programming languages don't care. Physics doesn't care. And so if anyone is thinking that, oh, this has like a political slant, that's not what I'm saying at all. There's no political slant. They're simply just using facts and knowledge and these peer-reviewed sources. Not to say that the peer review process is perfect. I mean, I'm on a lot of these committees and we don't always get it right? So if you see papers that are dubious in computer science, you can blame me. Like I might have been involved in letting that get through, but we're not perfect, right? At the end of the day, we do our best and we do change our minds if we make a mistake. Like we'll try to retract certain things, or very ethical authors will do these retractions themselves if they realize, oh, there's a claim in this paper that we got wrong, or an experiment was run incorrectly. And again, this is the whole scientific integrity. As scientists, it is, I think, our responsibility to hold ourselves accountable, even when others are not, because in many cases, as some of the leading minds in a field, other people may not be in a position to hold us accountable. Like they may not know. For example, if you're Albert Einstein, who can challenge you and sort of demonstrate you're wrong? I mean, maybe it could happen, but it's good, I think, if we're holding ourselves accountable. Like, for example, I think in the 3 Pillars paper, I don't have it up, I've made the comment that we didn't get the 3 pillars exactly right. And I think that's true, that there's minor things that we didn't get quite right. And I've been trying to do like a small amount of errata and updates to the archive site to get those changes in. So anyway, yeah, I love this. This is not political in any way. This is an apolitical thing, and that I think we should just do our best to use logic and reason and not go sideways. All right. We're going to close this gentleman. Love this guy. I'm following him now after I saw this. Love his energy. Now we've got these 2 left. We're going to maybe have him go last, and we're going to go over to this, mostly because that last guy was talking about in the era where we're not using facts and science and said we're using vibes. This seems like a really good one to lean into. So I think this lady's name is Alberta. Yeah. And she's very, she's ironic. She's sarcastic. And so it's sort of like the inverse of whatever she's saying. Anyway, let's see what these guys have to say.
Why was the website down yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, it was only down for like 6 hours.
Did you not test your code before pushing?
Look, testing your code is for people who don't know how to code. Like, you don't test your airbags before you drive to the grocery store, do you?
That's definitely not the same thing.
It's like, I've been coding for 6 months now. It's kind of time to take the training wheels off. I think I know what I'm doing.
Okay, but clearly you don't, because you crashed everything.
You know, the funny part is I vibe coded that entire branch. So even if I wanted to, I have no idea how to test it. Anyways, if anything does go wrong, it's not like it's my fault. I mean, AI wrote that code, not me. So
Why was the website down yesterday?
yeah, I mean, it was only down for
One more
like
time.
6 hours.
Did you not test your code before pushing?
Look, testing your code is for people who don't know how to code. Like, you don't test your airbags before you drive to the
sorry.
grocery
I'm
store,
laughing
dude.
too hard.
That's definitely not the same thing.
It's like,
You know, sure. Her her delivery is so great, and what's it just leans into this misinformation thing. Is these arguments that he's making are on the surface level, they almost have the appearance of making sense, except if you understand, then it makes like no sense. That this idea he's been coding for 6 months, like it's time to take the training wheels off. He doesn't need a test anymore. Like, no, you need to be testing your code for forever. That never stops, no matter how seasoned you think you may be. And then, she's talking about the website being down. He's like, it's only down for 6 hours, right? Yeah. If your car breaks down, you take it to a mechanic. Your car not functioning for 6 hours, probably acceptable. Website being down for 6 hours, ask Amazon if that might be acceptable. Actually, I think just yesterday, a lot of the ML systems, a lot of the models were out of commission because Google Cloud went down. In fact, I was doing some stuff with Opus Clips, and the whole thing just shut down. And I hear several other AI systems went down, and I think it was down for like several hours. And several articles I think came out today saying what happened, and this over reliance on the cloud. One more reason why, again, not necessarily using large language models, using small language models or other systems that don't have cloud components. Yeah. For those of you that know what I'm talking about, yeah, you probably get the implications here. But ask Google how they feel about the couple hours that their website was down. And then the last part that's just hilarious is, at least in my mind, is this. Even if there's any bugs, I vibe coded this, so I wouldn't even know how to test it. That is the narrative of truthfulness in that is terrifying to me, because I think that's exactly right. And that's not a valid argument. And that's one of the reasons why we should really freeze in our tracks and listen to what Andridge has done when he's walking back the vibe coding thing, saying, hey guys, this was meant to be low stakes, weekend excursion, and throwaway code. It was never meant that, like, this is what you put in production. And yeah, so if you have code that you vibed your way into and you don't understand it, like, oh boy, that's step number one. And then step number two is probably writing all the tests to make sure it does all the right stuff. But then one last thing. And then the comment about, yeah, and if it has any problems, it's not my fault because the AI wrote it. Like, no. I mean, yes, right? But no, because who's responsible for this now, right? Like, everybody's going to point at each other and say, well, the AI wrote it. Like, and crazy enough, I think we're moving beyond this stage of kind of lunacy, because we're getting episodes like this and channels like GTT and other people like Andridge finally speaking out against this. But there was a time, right? For those of you that know, there was a good year plus where we were the silent minority. And if we tried to speak up, I think people mocked us as being anti-technology, anti-intellectuals, anti-progress, and we're like, no. We love tech, we love AI, we want all this stuff to move forward. We just want to make sure that we don't destroy science in the process. Yeah. So, okay.
Like, I've been coding for 6 months now. It's kind of time to take the training wheels off. I think I know what I'm doing.
Okay, but clearly you don't because you crashed everything.
You know, the funny part is I vibe coded that entire branch. So even if I wanted to, I have no idea how to test it. And anyway,
I love how the text, at least based on what I've observed, the only time the text goes from bottom up, because most of the time we read from top down, is in that case where he's talking about the AI wrote it, and I don't know how to, I vibe coded this. I wouldn't even know how to test it, and the words were coming in reverse, basically, I think highlighting the point of nobody understands. Okay, cool. So that's our second clip. Let's go to our third. This one is, I think, a little more serious-ish. But I have to say, I very much agree with the principles that he's going to talk about. And I think that there's a lot of confusion about this, that I think there's this notion that struggles and failure and challenges and just not hitting it out of the park every time is bad. And I think that is a completely false narrative, and it's doing society and communities at large a disservice, because the more we fail, the more it generally means, as long as we're trying our best, that we're pushing our boundaries. But if we're just succeeding in everything we're doing, are we really growing? So what I'm saying probably is not going to make any sense until we watch this. So let me shut up and let's watch it.
I feel sorry for him. And I was so excited that his life was falling apart. And I feel like an ass, right? But I was like, he's been rich for so long. He's just millions of dollars, so rich. And I remember I was like, bro, I cannot wait till you don't drive a Ferrari anymore and you drive a Civic. And he's like, what the f-? And I was like, I just want to see you hungry. But you, with your skill set, your tenacity, and who the f you are, with your back against the wall, this is going to be the greatest movie of all time. And he was like, whoa, I get it. I was out here feeling sorry for myself. The best place you can be is your back against the wall. I've got hit 3 times in the last month where it was like, I'm losing everything. And it takes me a second, and then I get excited because I'm like, whoa, but if I figure this out, this is going to be the greatest movie of all time. So I have a friend that's going broke, he's losing everything. And he called me to sort of,
Yeah. So I love this. And maybe part of it, from my perspective, is, I'm 50 and I've been through various struggles. And when I was younger, I remember there was this point in time where I wanted calm. I wanted just things to be straightforward, or at least that's what I thought. And maybe part of that is, at that point in my life, it has been struggle after struggle, and I never felt like I had this moment of just, I've got things sorted. I've got my degrees, I've got my house, I've got my career, I've got all the stuff that I want to have, and it's not total chaos and total madness. Because growing up for me there were lots of curveballs and there were lots of challenges. And so I think maybe because I was experiencing that over and over, I just wanted this sense of peacefulness, to where I would be challenged, but not so much to where I would be awake at night wondering, like, how am I going to eat tomorrow? This kind of thing. But then this amazing thing happened is I reached this level of achievement where I had the degrees, I had the career, I had the stable life. And it was terrifying in this very different kind of way, in that I felt like I was beholden to almost like the boredom of it, the stability of it, the security of it, is that it's like those challenges that were real were not as present. They weren't as visible. And this wild thing happened is I started to crave hard. I wanted more challenging things. I wanted problems. I wanted chaos. And I didn't want it because I'm like a destructive person. I wanted it because I felt like I was just standing still. I felt like I wasn't pushing my boundaries. And it's the first time in my life that I really kind of had reached this level of achievement where things were calming. And suddenly I was like, wow, I've been striving for this my entire life, and now I've achieved it. And this is not nearly as great as I thought it was going to be. And that's when it sort of clicked for me, is I realized I don't want, this is why I'll constantly say I don't really care about money. I don't. I care about meaningfulness. And like, I'm not trying to be disrespectful or dismissive of the notion of money. I think money is a necessary evil. And it's easy for people to say, oh, I don't care about money when you already have money, right? So I'm not trying to be disingenuous here. What I'm trying to say is I think I reached this point to where having more money, it was clear to me that this was not something that was going to like sort of broaden my horizons. It wasn't going to be something that would elevate me. And that's when I started to shift the narrative from the focus on happiness to this focus on meaningfulness. Because I realized this, this is around the time that I was chasing this idea of being happy, the pursuit of happiness, the American dream, or whatever the things are that we tell ourselves. And for all intents and purposes, I had those things, right? I had created a successful startup. I had a PhD. I worked at one of the most prestigious research labs in the United States. I was an adjunct professor at like a tier one, R1 university. I had it all. And it was awful. It was like, what now? What am I supposed to do now? Dad, mom. And then it dawned on me that like, this pursuit of happiness is, it's a hamster wheel that the only way that you think that you can do the happiness is to speed up the hamster wheel. But at some point you get the hamster wheel moving so fast, it can't move any faster. And at that point, you're not happy anymore. You are complacent. You're just numb. And the only thing that can make you happy is a faster speed, but you can't go faster. And that's why this focus on happiness, I think, is the wrong thing to focus on. What I think you should really be focusing on, this is my take, is meaningfulness. Because meaningfulness is something that you can strive toward on a daily basis and you can achieve on the daily. And it doesn't have any relationship to your emotional state. For example, this week it was frustrating. I was angry. I was sad. I was at moments super anxious. very stressed, all these things. But it had tremendous meaning. The meaningfulness of this week was just like off the charts. And it also did have small, very tiny amounts of happiness. But the majority of this week was not happy. It was pain and it was suffering. And it was great. It was brilliant. And that's what happens, I think, when you start to shift this narrative from, instead of pursuing happiness and comfort, you're pursuing meaningfulness and discomfort. You want to experience this challenge because you understand delayed gratification is something that gives you purpose. It lets you know that you're kind of like doing the right thing and you're moving towards something that maybe is bigger than your own happiness. Like you're part of a community, you're in service of others, like this whole thing. And going back to what this guy's talking about is his friends calling him to talk about how awful his life is and he's broke and, he's going to create this sob story. He's going to create this sob story and have sort of this victim mentality. And his friend is like, dude, I'm so happy for you. This is the best ever. And his friend is like, what are you talking about? Why would you be happy? And he's like, because this is an incredible opportunity. And I know who you are. You're like such an incredible rock star. And that people that I think reach their true potential in moments of desperation. Necessity is the mother of all invention, is that until we are really pressed with our back up against the wall, it can be hard to know what we're really capable of because we don't necessarily need to do all that we're capable of. We can just get by on doing enough. And so this is one of my main mantras in life. And part of the reason why I do kind of the wacky and crazy things that I do, that I put myself in the line of fire, is I put myself in situations that constantly push me in different ways and force me to grow in things that I'm not very strong at, like this YouTube channel, right? I don't know anything about YouTube or being a content creator, but it dawned on me that this is something that's really important to me. And I need to have the ability to share the things that I want to share with more people than just those students that go to that one university or the employees that work at this one company. Because what about all the other people that we can be helping? What about all the other folks that don't happen to have this like level of privilege, but they do have a phone and they're starving for knowledge. They're starving for education. And that's super important to me. I mean, like one of the things that I did, I don't know, several decades ago is I went to India for about a month, and I went there to teach software engineering to a bunch of my colleagues that were born and raised in India. And it was incredible how grateful many of those folks were that I flew out there and I spent that much time with them. And like I taught a full course on C++ programming. And I remember they were just so infinitely grateful. And this is when I started to do more international stuff, where I would fly to Denmark and give a keynote, even though I'm just going to be there for like one day, but helping people that are not just those people that are in Northern California. So the point is that when you are working in these areas where you're pushing your boundaries, it's incredible, I think, the things that you can do, not only for yourself, but also for others, is that you can be seen as a role model. You can be elevating your community and just kind of raising all boats, right? Like moving us out of the dark ages and more into becoming a multiplanetary species, right? Like that's a real thing. I want to dedicate my life to creating as much technology that I can while I'm still here, using machine programming and all these other crazy things that my colleagues, both at the uni and in the company, are working on, and we can have a backup plan. So if there is some sort of catastrophic event on planet Earth, which is coming, statistically, it's like a fact. It's a nines problem. It's a 99.9999999% likelihood. It's just a question of when. And so we are in this unique phase right now where we have the ability to move technology forward, and it doesn't always stay like this, right? Like that's the whole point of keeping this thing up, is we, just because we have advances in science today doesn't mean that this can't go backwards. It sort of reinforces that original Instagram that we were watching on the gentleman talking about how we're in this space where there's misinformation, and people are saying, you know, I did my own 5 minutes of research on the internet, and that supersedes what these expert scientists have been arguing and proposing and validating for decades. Again, I'm not saying that the scientists always get this right and you should believe everything they say. I mean, that's the whole point, actually, of science, is that if it doesn't stand up to scrutiny, then it gets evicted. That's part of the reason why I love it so much, is that it forces us to hold ourselves accountable. We have to be honest. And so if there are holes in it, then it gets thrown away. We move on to like the next thing. So anyway, I think that that's mostly all I want to share for tonight. It's been a super crazy week and it's been great. And I promise we are going to get to part 3 on this code, so we can see concretely the performance differences between these types of things. Maybe I'll get to that tomorrow, and we'll definitely be writing more code. And there's actually some exciting things I want to share about some developments going on with Merly, and in particular, some of the awesome results that some of our customers are getting, improving their repositories and improving the quality. Again, using artificial intelligence, but not stochastic language models, using things that are deterministic, like Merly's AI system. And again, it doesn't have to be Merly's AI system. You can build deterministic AI in a variety of ways, just like you can build stochastic AIs in a variety of ways. It doesn't just have to be language models. Basically, anything that is fundamentally a neural network is going to be fundamentally stochastic just by its nature. It's like a petroleum-based car. Like, even if you make that car hybrid, it's still petroleum-based. The only way to get it to not be petroleum-based is you don't use petroleum at all. So then now it's a different type of car. It's an electric car. And so similar thing with neural networks is, by their nature and the requirements of like their convergent properties, the stochasticity is kind of like built in. Anyway, thanks everybody for letting me rant for an hour. This has been super fun. And Merle, you want to come up here, buddy? Come on. Merle, come on. Come on, buddy. Come here. Come here. Come on. Come on. Come on. Yeah, come on. He's thinking about it. He's trying to get around. Come here. Yeah, come on. Say hi to everybody. Okay, come. It just get over. Here he is. Okay. Yeah. Here's the Merle. This is the Merle dog. At some point, I'll bring the Merle mascot into the picture, and you can see Well, if you go to the Merly website, you'll see it. But I have like the actual figurine in the corner here, which I'm pointing to constantly. But now we got to say hello to the Merly dog. Okay, are you going to come up a little bit so they can see you? There you go. Okay, that's a good boy. Yes. Okay, say good night now. It's a good Friday night. And now we're going to just veg a little bit and then go to bed so we can do... Are you okay, buddy? Oh, I think I just popped him with the keyboard. Sorry. Okay, I'm a bad dad. Anyway, we're probably going to have some great VODs this weekend. So hang in there. We'll get part 3 going, and maybe we'll talk more about software architecture and some of these other awesome results happening with Merly. So you guys have a great weekend. Stay safe. Stay healthy. We'll talk soon.